If you're learning the Korean language and currently preparing for the TOPIK 1 exam, or you plan to appear for the TOPIK 1 exam in the future, then this video is going to be really helpful for you. So make sure you watch it till the very end. Hi guys, my name is Vedansh. I'm a Korean language instructor from India and I'm also a TOPIK level 5 holder. In this specific video, I wanted to talk about TOPIK 1. I wanted to make a detailed video explaining certain things related to the TOPIK exam in general and specifically TOPIK 1 that people have questions or doubts about. So I'll briefly introduce you to the points that I'll be covering in this video. Firstly, we'll be talking about the TOPIK exam and all the relevant information regarding it. Secondly, what is the structure of the TOPIK 1 exam? Thirdly, how much do you actually need to know before you try to attempt the TOPIK 1 exam? Fourth, how much time does it actually take to prepare for the TOPIK 1 exam? And fifth, what are the study material, resources or study tips that I would recommend to anyone preparing for the TOPIK 1 exam? The first point is, what is the TOPIK exam? Now, TOPIK stands for Test of Proficiency in Korean Language. The title is self-explanatory. This exam tests your level of proficiency in the Korean language. How well do you know the Korean language? It's pretty much similar to the exams like IELTS or TOEFL that you give for the English language. If you're going to South Korea in general as a tourist, you do not require TOPIK. TOPIK is only required in very specific cases. For example, if you're applying to a job that uses the Korean language, it could be a job with a Korean company, a non-Korean company, it could even be a local company because local companies are also dealing with international Korean clients. So if you're dealing with the Korean language in your job in any sort of way, they will require a sort of certification, some sort of proof that you're proficient in the Korean language, and that's where the TOPIK certification comes into play. The second case is if you're applying for higher education in South Korea to universities. A TOPIK certification in such cases can help your application. It can increase your chances of getting accepted. Certain universities can also provide you with scholarships if you have a high TOPIK scores. That is why the TOPIK exam is only required in certain specific cases. Now, why is the TOPIK exam important? TOPIK exam is a standardized government organized exam. That is the reason it holds recognition. If you ask that who is responsible for organizing the TOPIK exam for your specific country, it will basically be institutions that are affiliated with the Korean government. For example, the KSI, King Sejong Institute. The King Sejong Institute has a lot of branches worldwide, globally. And usually these sort of institutions who are associated with the Korean government are responsible for organizing the TOPIK exam in that particular country. Since I'm from India, I can give you more clarification on how TOPIK is conducted in India. So for the Indian viewers, right now TOPIK is being conducted in 5 Indian cities: Delhi, Bengaluru, Pune, in Manipur and in Chennai. Now, all the KSI institutes for these respective cities are responsible for organizing the TOPIK exam. In Delhi, earlier it was done by the Korean Culture Center, which is the KSI branch of Delhi, but now it is conducted by the Korean Education Center. For Pune, it is the Indo-Korean Center. For Bengaluru, it is KSI Bengaluru. For Chennai, it is KSI Chennai. And for Manipur, I think it is the KSI branch in Manipur. So whenever you plan on registering for the TOPIK exam, keep in mind that the TOPIK exam is only conducted twice or thrice a year, depending upon the branch. Whenever you want to register for the TOPIK exam, first of all, choose which branch you're going for. Then go to the official Instagram page of that branch. That is usually the place where you can find all the official information. There is no other place. There is no centralized place where you will get all the information, like the information related to all the branches. Usually, because these specific branches are responsible for organizing the TOPIK exam on designated dates, they are only responsible for releasing the official information, and that is the only information that you should be following. I've seen that there is always this massive confusion about how do we even register for the TOPIK exam whenever it is announced in India. Just go to the Instagram page of the branch where you plan on taking the TOPIK exam and check how they're taking registrations. It could be through a website, it could be through a Google form. For example, in the Delhi branch, the Korean Education Center takes registrations through website. For the other branches, it is still going on through Google Forms. I'll add the links to the Instagram accounts of all these Indian KSI branches so that you can easily access them and you should follow them. Moving on to the second point, which is the structure of the topic exam. Now, first of all, the topic exam is divided into two parts, topic 1 and topic 2. Topic 1 has level 1 and level 2. Topic 2 has level 3, 4, 5, 6. So these exams are conducted separately because they also differ in structure. In this particular video, we are talking about the topic 1 exam. So the topic 1 exam has two sections, listening and reading. Both the sections are of 100 marks each, so total the exam is of 200 marks. The listening section has 30 questions, the reading section has 40 questions. And usually for these questions, the marking scheme is like 2 marks, 3 marks or 4 marks. They are not in any particular order, they are basically random. Talking about the time, the listening section is of 40 minutes, the reading section is of 60 minutes. So usually first you have the listening section, then you have a little break, and then you have the reading section. Now talking about the passing marks. For level 1, you need 80 marks or above out of 200. For level 2, you need 140 marks or above out of 200. If you get less than 80 marks, then you will fail in the exam. You will not be assigned any level. This brings me to my third point. How much should you actually know before you can even attempt the topic 1 exam? Now this is a very big confusion amongst the people who are still at the beginner's level of the Korean language. People don't actually know how much they should learn before they can even attempt the topic exam. I'll give you a very brief idea based upon the curriculums that I've taught earlier. The curriculum that I'm referencing is the Sejong Korean curriculum, which is generally taught in KSI. It is the same curriculum that I have studied when I was in KSI. It is the same curriculum that I've usually taught my students. In case you're not aware about the Sejong Korean curriculum and you have been following some other curriculum like Sogang, Yonsei, etc., I'll add all the necessary information regarding the Sejong Korean curriculum in the description box. There's a website called Nuri Sejong where you can find all the study material. The disadvantage is that all the books are in the form of an ebook, so you cannot really download the PDF, but I'll try to make a Google Drive link because I have certain PDFs and I'll add them there so that it's easier to access and download. To be honest, it's not that worrisome because for the beginners levels like starting levels 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, usually the content of the curriculums are the same, whether it's Sejong, whether it's Sogang or Yonsei or any other curriculum, because it's basic level Korean, usually have the same sort of vocabulary and grammar patterns. If you're aiming for level 1 of topic 1, I suggest to have the basic knowledge of Sejong Korean level 1 and level 2. That means if you want to try to get 80 marks out of 200 marks, you should have the basic knowledge of these two levels. If you want to attempt the entire paper in hopes of clearing level 2, which is more than 140 marks, then you should know till at least level 3 or level 4. If you know till level 4, you're on the safer side. You have a higher chance of getting higher marks. But even till level 3, I feel is kind of sufficient because till level 3, it covers a lot of basic grammar patterns and a lot of vocabulary and diverse topics related to everyday life. This is my general suggestion. This is the way in which I can estimate the syllabus that you need to read for the topic 1 exam. Apart from that, if you think that you can prepare for topic 1 directly by using any reference book or study material, then that is not true. Because we are talking about the topic 1 exam, it very much tests you on the fundamentals and basics of the Korean language. So it is important to learn the basics of the Korean language very properly, in a way that your foundation is strong. Usually these reference books do not have clear explanations or detailed explanations, and that is kind of obvious because they are not meant to do that. They're meant to provide you with an overview of the exam. That is why if you want to make your basics stronger, you need to follow a proper curriculum, a curriculum that explains things in detail. And that's why I recommend Sejong Korean books. Those are absolutely fantastic. Moving on to my fourth point, how much time does it actually take to prepare for the topic 1 exam? Now, when we talk about preparation time, it usually differs from one person to another because it depends upon certain factors like how much time are you actually devoting to studying Korean on a daily basis? How good are you at grasping a new language? How good are you at memorizing new vocabularies and their meaning? There are a lot of factors which can determine the pace at which you're learning a new language. If I had to give a rough estimate, I would say that it would take around 6 to 8 months on an average to clear the topic 1 exam if you're starting from the absolute beginning, from level 0, from the scratch, considering you have no knowledge of the Korean language. Then it could take 6 to 8 months to clear the topic 1 exam if you're studying consistently. It could take more, it could take less, depending upon how much time you're actually devoting to studying. So for the people or institutes that are claiming that you can clear topic 1 in just 3 months, that is very questionable. Because if you are a beginner, the first 2 to 3 months are just spent upon building the base for a language. People usually take that amount of time to get familiar with the Korean language, the new writing system, the pronunciation system, forming basic sentences, reading basic sentences. That is the amount of time it usually takes to familiarize yourself more with the Korean language. So thinking that you can clear the topic 1 exam in 2 or 3 months when you have zero knowledge of Korean is very unrealistic. So it's very important to set realistic goals. I would suggest to consider a minimum of 5 to 6 months of consistent studying before you appear or try to attempt the topic exam. And it's not only about the time but also about covering the basic syllabus that I mentioned earlier. It only makes sense to attempt these questions when you feel like you have covered the basic vocabulary, grammar points, or the general themes about everyday life that were mentioned in the book I mentioned earlier or any other curriculum book. Because when you compare the questions in the topic 1 exam, you will have very easy questions also in the beginning of the exam, simply related to the vocabulary, yes/no questions. But towards the end, you will also have heavier questions, paragraph-based questions, questions with longer sentences. Coming to the final point, which is what are the resources and study material that I would recommend. First and foremost recommendation is solving the previous year papers, all the old papers that have come in the exam till now. Where can you find these papers? There's a website called Topic Guide. I'll link it in the description. You can go on the section of previous year papers, and then for all the papers, you can download everything related to that paper. But if you want an easier alternative, I will link a Google Drive in the description. It is basically the Google Drive where I have added all the study materials for both topic 1 and topic 2. There's a folder called old papers or previous year papers. You can access that, and there you will find a combined PDF of all the topic 1 papers. My suggestion is to solve as many previous year papers as you can. Reference books should not even come to your mind unless you have solved previous year papers. Solving the previous year papers has a lot of advantages. You get familiar with the structure of the paper, with the format of the paper, kind of vocabulary that they're asking in the exam, kind of grammar patterns that are being asked in the exam. It also gives you an idea about your own level, like how many questions are you being able to understand, which questions are feeling more difficult. So it has a lot of advantage. Whenever you come across a vocabulary that you do not know, write it somewhere, write it in a separate notebook. In this way, you'll be able to create a vocabulary bank that you can keep on revising. The vocabulary and the grammar patterns that appear in the topic 1 exam are incredibly repetitive. It means that they keep on repeating. Within the same paper, the same vocabulary can come across multiple questions. The same applies to grammar patterns. And amongst the different papers also, the same vocabulary keeps on repeating. So this is something that you can learn if you're solving all the papers yourself. Because in the case of reference books, there are a lot of reference books that can give you vocabulary banks or list of words to learn for the topic exam, but they are very generalized. They have topic related vocabulary, they have in general vocabulary also. So that kind of increases your workload. If you want to be more precise with the words that have a higher chance of coming in the topic exam, the best method is to solve the exams and create your own word bank. And lastly, for grammar, I would only recommend this one book, which is Korean Grammar in Use. It has 3 parts. For topic 1, the first part, which says beginners to earlier intermediate, that is sufficient. All the grammar patterns that you need to know for topic 1, 99% of the grammar patterns are summarized in this book if you look at the index. Another advantage of this grammar book is that the grammar patterns are not listed randomly, they are grouped according to their usage. For example, if you're looking for grammar patterns that indicate purpose, intention, ryogo, ryogohada, urokhada, all of these grammar patterns will be found under the same category. So it makes it easier to remember the grammar patterns, as in when do you actually use these grammar patterns. So that sort of grouping makes it easier to remember them. That is why I love this grammar book. I feel like that is pretty much that I would recommend in terms of the resources for topic 1 exam. If you want to look at more resources, again, there is a Google Drive in the description. The folder name is topic 1. It has all the study material that I have for the topic 1 exam. So in case you want to look at reference books, you can search the books there. And the very last thing, since I am a Korean language instructor in India, I have an online course related to topic 1 that I took last year. So if you're from India and you understand Hindi, although that course is mostly in English and a little bit of Hindi. So if you want to gain access to that course, which is basically in a Google Classroom, it has recorded lectures, study material. It basically has an Excel sheet where I've listed all sorts of vocabulary and grammar points that keep on repeating themselves. Basically what I told earlier. So I have already done that for a few papers, and that is there in that Excel sheet. So that is all part of the course. In case you want access to that course, you can contact me directly on my Instagram. I'll put the link of my Instagram in the description. And I feel like that's it for this video. So all the best if you're preparing for the topic 1 exam, and good luck.